1. Fragments of silicon, everyone's favorite semiconductor, even if they don't know it.
Welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam, and joining me as always are Galix.
Hello.
Eddie Fan.
Yo.
Ogre.
I'm here.
And Twilight.
Oi.
Okay.
Did you channel Naka there for a second?
I just jumped up my head.
Apparently he turned Australian. Anyway, let's get to the news. Let's see where to start. Ogre, why don't you begin the proceedings?
Well, let me see. I don't know, not much happened this past week or so. They had a blood donation, which is finally going better, because apparently the problem with that was my iron was always low, so we've rectified that by eating big old steaks beforehand, and that seems to jump up the iron pretty well.
Did the vampires treat you well?
There's no vampires there.
Really?
I could tell there were no stone masks about.
They hide them in the back room.
Oh. Though I had another fun moment because my left arm didn't want to work properly, so they had to go in through the right for, I think, the first time since I've been doing this. Recordings are going fine. Naka switched over to a new graphics card, which should hopefully increase the quality
Graphics
on
card
the
or capture
videos.
card?
Capture card, there.
Yeah, he might need a new graphics card or a new processor or something, because I saw a tweet by him the other day saying that he's trying to do videos in 1080p, but it's taking
way too longer than it needs to be for some reason. Probably because it's 1080p.
Yeah.
But,
it might be time for him to buckle up and get a new computer.
I mean, that's like more than 1,000 Ps.
His current one's still doing pretty good. It's just that he might need to up on some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he just flat out might need to get a new, like, CPU or something like that, or more RAM.
That might be it, but that's kind of up to him as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I know he's going to need to upgrade something, because that's how you get that rendering time down. More power.
Let me see. I finally beat most of the raid stuff in Final Fantasy XIV last week, too.
Oh, and then we get the fun stuff to take you through Savage.
Yeah, I'm prime on my way to start doing Savage stuff, so hopefully I'll do good up until something bad happens, and I'll start screaming.
I get a Skype call, what did you make me do?
Let me see. Anything else? We're looking forward to that new Aliens movie soon, which I'm surprised is soon, because holy shit, it's May. I still feel like we should be back in March, but no, it's May.
I agree, actually.
But, which is the 19th, which coincides close to my dad's birthday, so yay! We're gonna do that for his birthday. Let me see. Other than that, it's just a slow trudging through the rest of this month of Stormblood. Which is gonna creep up faster than I thought, considering aliens creeped up faster than I thought. But you don't want them to do that. They're aliens. They creep up on you.
I was about to say both literally and metaphorically.
Yeah. considering this one seems to be very attached to coming out of your back. Anyway, that's it for me. So let's do Twilight.
Was it me?
Yeah, that's you.
You cut out there for a second. Well, anyway, Monday we had our bathroom remodeled.
Oh man.
Everything. Had the floor stripped out and everything. It wasn't too bad of an experience. Had to go one night without a shower. But it's done now, thankfully. Besides that, I've been playing games, and that's about it. Next.
I guess I'll go. Sunday was my 25th birthday, so woo. I'm still a snot-nosed. I was gonna say I'm still a snot-nosed kid.
One day the weight of the world will crush your dreams.
Oh, it already has. I've been busy getting the house kind of sort of cleaned up for when I have my knee surgery, so that's gonna be fun.
Have you gotten that set up, or?
No, I see the doctor the 22nd. Yeah.
Fun times.
Scheduling is not fun.
That's why I said fun times, ironically.
Yeah, and I still don't know how long I could be missing from that. Like, I could only miss like a week. I could be out for over a month. I have zero idea.
Well,
So I guess
we'll address the topic, after you know when you're going under the knife.
Yeah.
And, we will prepare for such an inevitability, because for those who don't know how the setup works, Pettyfan is our current stream operator. He's the one who does the actual, connection between Skype and Twitch and YouTube for the other show.
Yeah. And I also do like the video and stuff that I play and the games I play on air, so
Right. Also, coordinate the music. You do the chirons that we have on the video. He basically does all the background work, which is helpful for both Mac and I, because we don't have to fiddle about with the technical details while actually hosting the show. So
I've made myself useful.
Yes. So while that's while he's out, we will have Ogre and/or Twilight handling that aspect of the production until Pettyfan comes back.
I'd offer to help, but I think we decided that my computer probably couldn't handle it.
Yeah. And it's like I would do it myself, but like I said, I can focus a lot more on the front end stuff here, like the interview and guiding the show without having to worry about the technical details as well.
So we'll cross that minefield when we come to it.
It's an impending change. This show has seen hosts before.
Hopefully not as long as the Ogre change.
Ogre
Could you imagine if I just came back the other day from that? That's what I told Naka the other day. It's like, could you imagine if it was just now that I came back and we were doing this?
Yeah. Other than that, I got some money for my birthday, so I'm gonna see about possibly going to GameStop sometime this weekend and getting some stuff. Like, I want to get Nier Automata for my PS4, and maybe Puyo Puyo Tetris. Outside of that, I don't think a whole lot's going on my end.
Like, did you ever get your bed fixed?
Nope. Part of that is because my dad had to have hemorrhoid surgery, so he burned all of his PTO time recovery for that, so it's going to have to wait a few months. And even if I did, I wouldn't be able to use it after surgery because I have a loft bed.
Uh-huh.
So knee in an immobilizer makes it difficult to go up ladders.
No, you just got to develop 180-degree joint mobility.
Yeah, sure, we'll go with that.
All right. Duly noted. Who's next?
I think Golux is the only one left.
If I'm counting correctly, it's me. Yeah. Well, work's been a bit of a pain in the butt the last few days because the main part of my job lately is scanning documents for archival purposes, and my scanner has been, malfunctioning as they do. But hopefully we're getting that dealt with soon. We have most of our tech stuff outsourced, so it's a little bit less immediate. There's no one I can actually just go and bug in person about it. Video game wise, I've finally gotten a couple of Switch games. I got Kamiko and Puyo Puyo Tetris, and then I got Mario Kart 8. And I think there's another thing. I want to get more things, but I don't have all the money in the world, so I can't. But I've been playing that. It's pretty fun. I find it's a little bit less comfortable in just straight up handheld mode than I would like. The thing is a little bit slim. I think there was talk about add-on battery packs for the Joy-Cons that would give them a little bit more thickness, which might help.
How do the Joy-Cons charge anyway?
The Joy-Cons charge from the console, which charges from the stand.
It's the weirdest system, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I didn't know if they was like the Wiimotes where you just you threw AA batteries in them. No,
they're actually, I think, thinner than a AA battery, which is part of the problem. Yeah, it works much better if you use the Joy-Con grip to make it like an actual controller. Although I have found I agree with the thing I read that said that the because they're straight up and down, the D buttons on the left side and the stick on the right side are a little bit awkward to get at sometimes. Other than that, I'm still playing Breath of the Wild on the Wii U because that's where I got that, and I'm getting fairly close to the end. I'm looking forward to the DLC that they just announced for that.
You're gonna be wearing Majora's Mask. What the hell is wrong?
I'm curious as to what perk Majora's Mask is going to give you, but I'm just looking forward to the item that lets you set any one location as a fast travel point, and the mask that jingles when you're near a Korok seed. Because
Lord knows if everyone needs those.
Yeah, those are both things that will be endlessly useful. Although I might get more use out of them on the Switch version when I get that, which I plan to eventually, but we'll see. And the weather was finally nice today after being like drizzly for like a week straight. Other than that, I don't think I had that much to say right now, so I'll pass the ball to Adam.
All right. Let's see how to handle this. Yesterday, I had to do some personal stuff that I'm not going to mention on air. And I'll leave it at that. It's a thing that's going to take a while. I might talk about it when it's all done, but until then, it's something I prefer to keep private. I've made everyone on staff aware about it earlier. I talked to Mac about it a few hours before I talked to you guys. But
see, the problem is that Adam just keeps refusing to listen to our advice not to get suckered into conspiracies.
I'm like, don't even know where that came from.
Listen, Galax, I swear, sniffing chemtrails is not bad for you.
That being said, let's see. our hiring process on MSP has concluded. We have a new cast member for that program. Her name is Sobi. She was actually here a bit ago. She joined the call, and I guess she went to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
anyway, she's not going to be joining this show on any kind of regular basis unless plans change significantly.
yeah, it's like,
but she's on MSP, so come over there and listen to her. She seems pretty cool.
yeah. I mean, at the very least, I guess she needs to get acclimated to us. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's also, this show has a pretty fixed format, a pretty fixed topic, and it's like, it's something that could change. I don't know. Right now, it's just for MSP, or we could have a different person join the cast down the line. I don't know. Like, it's like, in terms of diversity, I don't exactly know where to look for gamer girls. Like, I certainly fish around, but
or even girls who are gamers who don't consider themselves gamer girls.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I could find them on social media, but
people that we have a little bit more of a connection to start with would be nice.
Yeah. Like, plus, I'm like, plus, this is something that Mac initiated like a week ago, a week and a half,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So, like I said, it's like we have no immediate plans for such a thing, but things could change. Let's see. I think that's about it for news this week. So, merrily, we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week for, I believe, his 6th time on the show.
I definitely forget how many times it's been at this point. It's quite a few.
I'm like, yeah, it's up there. I think I counted, and this is like number 6. But yeah, it's our good friend John Pickett once more.
It's always good to be back.
Indeed. Right, so this time around, we're talking about the Shadows of Pygmalion.
Yes.
Yes. So why don't you tell our audience what this particular visual novel is?
So in our press releases, we build this as a Yuri action title. And that's, if you really want like 2 words to describe it, it's about as close as you're going to get.
And action in the sense of visual novel with action, not in the sense of like an actual action game.
Yeah, it's not a platformer. It's more the story itself is focused on the action and the excitement and the suspense that plays out as you read through it. The game was originally all ages. There's no adult content in it to begin with. But it actually has a lot of influences from Madoka. So in terms of the setup in the story, the idea behind the setting of the world is that in the background of normal modern society, there are these dolls and these organizations surrounding these dolls, which have been secretly influencing and manipulating civilization for eons. And so they're sort of the secret societies that are controlling the world and making humanity go the way they want for their own purposes, and most people can't see them at all. So for the most part, they're almost otherworldly because people don't realize them. When they die, their entire existence is forgotten by humanity. And of course, the exception to this is the main character of Pygmalion, the character Mina. She is actually able to see these dolls as they're walking around the world and influencing with the world. And that is part of what leads them to seek her out and recruit her after she ends up getting mixed up in a couple of the battles between them. Because, of course, the different organizations have their own slightly different ideas as for what they want, and they are engaged in battle with each other over the conflict of how they want to shape the world. And so it's once they recruit her is when she joins the organization and ends up involved in this basically battle for the fate of the world to try and decide who will have the say, who will have control. And as it progresses, you learn a lot of different things about it, like what it actually means to make a contract with one of these dolls and join their organization, what some of their actual goals and intents are. You learn more about the dolls' society itself and who the actual players are and what they're actually trying to do. And a lot of times, depending on your choices, it won't end well.
These dolls are human seeming?
The battle dolls are effectively human seen, and that is actually what Mina herself is sort of considered after joining them. The battle dolls are for most intents and purposes human, but they're given superpowers, special powers, supernatural abilities to help them fight each other. And then, of course, there's sort of a trade-off for being granted that power.
Mm-hmm.
Although, like, some of the doll descriptions do depict them as less than, passing than for human.
Yes. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but ultimately, it is very possible for some of the dolls to become nothing more than lifeless dolls. And that's actually sort of one of the bad ends you want to avoid as you're going through the game and the story.
Right, and so this game is called The Shadows of Pygmalion, and I can already see why it was called that, but I'm wondering, is there any actual connections to like the Greek myth here, or is it just because of the dolls?
There's a lot of allusions to the Greek myth, and a lot of the terminology that's used for the dolls and the interactions and some of the different positions and stuff comes from the Greek legends. So there's a layer of basis to it, but it's not like Pygmalion himself is in the story.
For those of us who are less familiar with Greek mythology in the audience, the myth of Pygmalion is the myth of a sculptor named Pygmalion who carves a sculpture of a perfect woman and then basically wishes for her to be made alive so that he can marry her and stuff. I don't remember all of the details, but that's the setup.
Yeah, that's what's usually most important about the myth.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen some of the illusions. I'm not sure where I am exactly in the game. Like, I've played about as I understand it, this is a full release title?
Yes. Pygmalion is a full-length title, and what we at MangaGamer generally mean when we say that is it's about 800,000 Japanese characters, which comes out to around 400,000 English words.
Mm-hmm. And what sort of production values are we talking here? Are there like animated sequences and full songs and all that stuff?
To my knowledge, I don't remember any overly animated sequences outside of the opening movie itself. The action scenes tend to be a lot more focused with the sprites, the CGs displayed, and special effects that are called by the engine, called by the script to flash and do their thing on the screen.
Makes sense. I mean, it's like I said, I don't know if like there's what they call like an opening CG thing, which sometimes has occurred in like the middle of a visual novel I've played.
Yeah, the opening movie. It's usually the opening movie in most visual novels is placed sort of after the prologue and right before you get into the chunk of it.
And what drew MangaGamer to this particular title?
So we've worked with Propeller before, and Propeller is actually really well known for doing a lot of well-written action titles. We have Tokyo Babel is another one by the same company that we are currently selling on Steam, and you can actually buy it in a bundle with Pygmalion. And so that was sort of what we were looking at here. Is we wanted something that would appeal to the audience and to readers that like reading the action stories and the stories that have sort of that more dramatic suspense and tension, and there's sort of a dark feel to it. A lot of times there's a term that's thrown around in Japanese culture, chuni or chunibyo, which refers to a lot of this sort of genre of games where it's focused on like secret societies or things that are in those sort of special powers and that are not part of regular society but exist in regular society. And it sort of plays up to that idea of there's this special group or these special people within otherwise normal world that have these responsibilities and these abilities to influence and do things on sort of a major dramatic scale. And that's sort of all part of the Chunin genre. And Propeller's very well at doing a lot of those and a lot of these games. And we wanted to add some to our catalog because we didn't have a whole lot of them at the time when we first licensed Pygmalion.
I've heard the name Chunibo, or however you pronounce it.
Yeah,
it literally translates to like
8th grader syndrome.
Sophomoritis, yeah.
But when I've heard of that, that's mainly that anime, Chunibu and You or what?
Yeah, Chunibyo Demo Koi ga Shitai. Yeah, I think that was what popularized the term. Yeah. But yeah, it's all about, I think, a sort of malaise people feel when they are starting to get to the point where they're less kids and are finding that nothing interesting is going on and kind of wishing it would.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I mean, the original term itself, it draws from Chunibyo or 8th grader system because it does refer to that sort of period that everyone tends to go through when they're around in middle school and adjusting to adulthood from childhood, and that idea of like you want to be someone special, you want to be awesome and amazing and cool, and really nothing actually is that way. And it's that sort of rejection of, I don't want to just be normal fuddy-dud. I want to be cool. I want to be awesome. I want to be special. I want to be something better than I am, or something different from the average, stand out. That kind of, it's all those sort of emotions rolled into one that usually, and it a lot of times it generates, and people just sort of like wanting to be a character from a story or a novel or pretending to be that character. And so most people usually grow out of it, of course. Some don't, but most do. And so it sort of plays to that, and it's plays up to a lot of those emotions, like you said. Yeah, like rejecting the norm and being part of this something else that is special or unique.
Right, and in regards to Propeller's other visual novels, were they Yuri titles as well, or was this their first?
Tokyo Babel was heterosexual, straight. There were straight pairings in Tokyo Babel. Pygmalion is Yuri. They've sort of gone back and forth on that.
Yeah, good to know. Good to know. So they got a mixture going on there.
Yeah.
Right. And okay, while it's it's an all ages title, is there still anything in the game that you had to work around in order to get on to the Steam service?
No, not really. I mean, I wouldn't rate it E for everyone. It's probably more teen, but because there are a couple fan service scenes and fan service shots between the ladies involved, but nothing that really pushes the envelope, unlike Kindred Spirits or Goktham.
Yeah, there's no problem with selling T for teen stuff.
Yeah.
That's good to know. Let's see. So who translated this particular title?
This was from. We had originally planned one of our senior translators to be on it, but we ended up having one of our newer translators take care of it, and he hasn't really been in the public very much, so I don't know if I should say his name or not. I forgot to ask before the interview.
I guess it's probably best if you don't know.
Yeah.
Right, so,
but he's done a lot of good work for us, and he's I'm trying to remember real quick. He is also working on, what else is he working on for us? Give me a minute and I'll come back to it.
All right. While he's doing that, Twilight, what are your thoughts on the game so far?
Well, initially it was a pretty good setup for a horror type visual novel, but yeah, psychological horror. But from there, it's doing all right so far. Definitely has this sense of how to put it.
You.
I kind of lost my train of thought there.
I thought you got disconnected.
Yeah.
Anyway, see if John has picked up his train. Yeah. So as you were saying.
Yeah. He's currently working on one of our other titles that we're actually planning to announce later this summer. So unfortunately, I can't say too much about the work he's done with us so far.
Okay. And yeah, Twilight does illuminate a good point about Shadows of Pygmalion. Even though it's an action title, it definitely flips genres at points. There are scenes that are painted more as horror than anything else, and sometimes it's a psychological thriller, and sometimes it's a light-hearted high school thing, and certainly at a few points it's felt like a dating sim.
We've actually received a lot of those same sort of descriptions and comments about Tokyo Babel as well. So I think that has to do more with the style and the approach that the company is taking to the games and the genre.
It's definitely taking its time building everything up. Mind you, there have been action sequences and sudden action sequences on interested to see how the very beginning ties into the rest, because it's really disconnected from everything that happens afterwards at present time.
Hmm.
You know, I suppose I can talk about like the very opening of the
Yeah,
game.
you
And
might as well.
yeah, it's like the very beginning of this opens with a fighter jet crashing, and you know, it seems like the protagonist is involved somehow. Maybe I don't know. Then it switches over to, and this is something that happens in New York City, and then it switches over to Japan, and it's kind of jarring. Hell, there's even an element of the thing from another world in this game, as it is stated that the dolls can be anyone, and
Yeah.
they integrate themselves into your memories.
Yes. That's sort of the rank and file puppets in the dolls organization. That's sort of their role in the whole civilization manipulation game, is to blend into society and be sort of the executors of what the organizations want done.
Right. And now, how is this game for interactivity? Do you make a lot of choices here? Are there any choices?
There are a lot of different choices. Because of course one of the big things as you play through the game is whether or not you actually want to keep fighting, even though after you've already sort of been dragged into this battle between the different dolls. And there's various reasons that you'll come up to and get to as for why you may or may not want to, and that sort of affects how the game ends. But I think for the most part it's fairly linear.
Duly noted. Duly noted. I mean, I've done some research, and I've noted, yeah, this is something that will eventually split into branching paths at some point, and there are different routes based off of certain choices.
Yeah, that's pretty standard for visual novels. So
yeah. And though I should also note, this is more of a story-based game. There is no there's no like romance options in terms of you've got to spend time, talk to the girls kind of deal.
Yeah, it's not a dating sim.
Yeah. And how long ago did this come out?
Pygmalion, if I remember correctly, was our February release.
Yeah, sounds about right. So it's been out for a couple months now.
Yeah.
Has it been doing well?
Yes. Yeah, I would say it's been doing fairly well for us. About what we expected to see from it. So.
And does Propeller have any other visual novels out there that you're maybe potentially interested in? I honestly don't know much about their output.
They definitely have a lot of very good visual novels. One in particular that they published several years ago is actually one of my favorite visual novels, but I don't know if we'll be looking at that one in particular anytime soon. But they do have a lot of different titles that are very good, and I think will do well over here in the States. So we'll probably be looking at more from them in the future.
Neat. Right. So shifting over to other titles, I see. How is the Higurashi franchise coming along?
Higurashi is doing very well for us. We actually just released the 5th chapter, which is the first chapter of the Answer arcs, on Steam last Friday. So people can check that out now if they'd like. We also have a bundle that for all the Higurashi chapters together on Steam. And that's doing very well for us. I can say the localization for chapters 6 and 7 are complete. So those are both in programming, and I'm currently finishing up some of the last-minute translation checking on chapter 8. So we're still on track to sort of have all those done by the end of the year, I would think.
Good to hear. Good to hear. And I'm guessing that Higurashi has become your working on Higurashi is what you've been doing post DiCapo.
I've been doing the translation checking for Higurashi, and I've also been working on a title called Maggot Baits, which is a very adult title, to put it mildly.
I think I know where this is going, but I don't want to know where it's going.
I will just say that Maggot Baits is probably more extreme in its content than Euphoria.
Like I said, I think I know where the maggots are going. Let's put it that way.
Oh, the maggots themselves are actually just tentacle monsters. They're not actual like bugs.
Oh God.
Because that makes it better. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. No.
There's no bugs in that game.
Okay.
That's surprisingly one of the few things that's not in that game.
Oh boy. Like, I think it's safe to assume that this one's not coming to Steam.
Maggot Baits is most certainly never coming to Steam. It is, yes. It actually has a very good story. There's actually an extremely good storyline in it that has to do, like, there's just some of the things the story involves are like love, revenge, Black Sabbath rituals, blasphemy to God, inquisitors smiting heathens, and of course lots and lots and lots of tentacle monsters.
Oh, so it's kind of
yeah, Outlast 2 is fine.
I don't think anyone's having sex in those games, though. That's kind of the difference here.
I don't know. It's a lot of genitals and exposed chest.
Give it time. Give it time.
I'm like, well, how do I put this? I just take that up with Steam, I guess. Like, but yeah, well, yeah. So, what are some of your other recently released titles that haven't come to Steam?
So, some of our other recent titles, we had in March, we saw the release of Kuroino, the first chapter of Kuroino, which is a great title for fans more of hardcore sex. The basic plot of Kuroino is you play as Volt, who is undeniably a villain, who has basically turned on the people that hired his mercenary band and conquered the different kingdoms, and is now also conquering their people.
Oh dear, how Conan.
Yes. So if you like that idea of like playing from the perspective of the unabashed villain who is having his fun breaking the different people that he's turned on, it's a very fun game. And like I said, in addition to that, we've had Higurashi released on Steam in April. This May, actually here on the 19th, we are looking at releasing Sweet Young Bride, which is it's a short Nukige based on the idea of that the sort of premise behind Sweet Young Bride is that to counter the declining population, Japan has instituted a policy where people can sort of submit their applications to get a spouse assigned to them by the government and start families. And that's sort of the premise, is the guy applies for one, gets his bride, and it's just sort of your nice, happy, sweet life with this fellow Japanese citizen. And then after that's released, we actually have plans to release a title that hasn't been announced yet, but is going to be more along the lines of an adult gameplay title. So for people that like adult content and gaming combined, that'll be a good one that we'll be able to present later this month. And then probably sometime this summer, we're hoping to release our title Bochi Musume, or Fashioning Little Miss Lonesome. And that's our next Otome game, but that will be on both our website and Steam. So, and that does have adult content available in it as well.
All right, and now I'd like to go over your convention schedule for the year.
Yes.
Because that time has come, or I suppose it's actually been going on.
Yeah, we had our first conventions at Anime Boston last month, as well as SakuraCon last month. Anime Boston was up in Maine. SakuraCon was out in Seattle, Washington. Up next for us, we have Anime Central out in the Midwest, which is going to be on May 19th. And then later we have Anime Expo at the beginning of July, followed by Otakon towards the end of, or towards the middle of August. And I think we might have one or two after that. I know we're looking at the possibility of the upcoming anime convention to be hosted in New York, so we might be participating in that. But the other ones are sort of, the applications are in the mix. So.
Gotcha. And is there anything that you can talk about regarding those upcoming appearances?
I will say we have a lot of very interesting announcements planned for Anime Expo. We are going to have, as guests with us to Anime Expo, we are going to have Yamakaze Ran, the artist for Princess Evangile, which I know is a hugely popular game on Steam. And we will also be having with us Itaru Inoue, who for many years was the artist for visual arts. She did the artwork for Kanan, Air, many of the artwork for Clanad, so she worked a lot with Key for a very long time.
That's pretty up there. Like,
yes, we're very excited to have both of them.
I mean the Key visual novel trilogy. I don't know how big of an influence they have had, but I know that they were a big deal some time ago.
Yes, Kanan and Air are where a lot of sort of the current generation of people like me who are working on visual novels got their start in the genre. Right. So it's still sort of iconic for many of the people that work in the industry.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I was never able to get into the Key stuff. It's like just not my particular taste.
And that's fair, because there were a lot of people like that too, because they do tend more towards this kind of stories that will pull your heartstrings relentlessly.
Yes, I've heard of their Clanad adaptation often gets cited as one of the best romantic anime of all time. Though that is with After Story, which I'm not sure was a visual novel before it became a television series.
Clanad After Story was basically the canon final route for Clanad the game.
Right. And I've definitely heard the tug at your heartstring things. regards to Key's visual novels.
Mhm.
Now, are you going to be personally attending any of these conventions, or is that going to be other people?
Yes, I will be at Anime Expo. I will be at Otakon, and if we do end up doing Anime NYC, I'll probably be there as well.
So you're doing Anime Expo?
Yes.
Oh, neat. I'm not sure if Max. I don't think Max doing Anime. Is he doing Anime Expo this year? I
don't think he's said.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't say anything.
Yeah, sometimes he does it. I'm not sure if he has like the capital to do it this year, or I don't know. That's something we'll ask on MSB. Right. So, does anyone here have any final questions for John for this appearance?
I do not.
I'm looking forward to trying out the game, although I probably won't have too much time, so I have no illusions about finishing it, unfortunately.
It happens. Well, anyway, John, as always, I thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule for being here, and I want to know if you want to come back onto the show on June 26th.
Yes, I think you'll manage to catch me right before I need to start thinking about traveling, so that'll work.
Okay. All right. So we'll catch up with you in a couple months, and as always, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. It's always great to be here and talk about the games.
Good to hear. Good to hear. All right, Betty Fan, play us to the next segment. All right, so welcome to this week's topic of discussion. This week we are going to be talking about, well, the thing that we were going to talk about last week until Night Trap announced that they were doing a remake. But that sort of ties into what we're talking about here. We are talking about the world's first true 32-bit system. Also, I believe the world's first standalone CD system. See, before I'm talking about the 3DO Interactive Multiplayer. That's its full name, but everyone just knows it as the 3DO.
Because 3DO is the name of the company that was behind it, isn't it?
Yes. I'm trying to remember where the actual name 3DO comes from. But I'm kind of blanking.
Wasn't it like audio video 3DO or something?
Yeah. I think that was in their advertising.
Yeah.
It's like.
I guess it's not that odd to call it the 3DO. I mean, a lot of people call the NES just the Nintendo.
Right, but here's the thing: the 3DO part wasn't an acronym for something. The NES is short for the Nintendo Entertainment System. As I said, the full name was the 3DO Interactive Multiplayer, which kind of reveals when this thing came out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because this was released in 1993, and as we talked about last week, this is the era of FMV. This is the era of the optical media being the hot new technology. This is the era where multimedia was a very big buzzword. And the 3DO tried to poise itself to take advantage of that. Not as much as, say, the CDI. Like, when I think of failed systems that really rode that multimedia thing to the ground, it's the CDI.
Yeah, the CDI tried hard and it failed catastrophically.
Actually, it was the other way around, because they were more interested in like the movies and the convergence, rather like the games were just a side thing they were doing at first. And then the games proved to be the most popular component, yes, even of the CDI, and that's when they tried to go more in that direction. But this isn't about the CDI.
Yeah.
the 3DO was touted as the true next-gen experience, and in many ways it was. If you've missed our previous discussions on this particular point in time, prior to the 3DO, yes, CD-ROM technology was a thing, but it was always done as a peripheral or a dual system. You know, you had the
like the Sega CD, where it was this big old thing you plugged your Sega thing into, and then you had to put in a cartridge to make it read it off the CD right.
Yeah, or the TurboGrafx CD, which later became the Turbo Duo. You know, they integrated the CD into the actual machine with the Turbo Duo, but it was still a dual system. This was the first system that was conceived out the gate to be a CD-ROM device.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With all the good things and bad things that implies. Good things largely involving, hey, you can have CD quality sound, and hey, your data storage is way bigger. And the bad things including load times and things like that, and trouble with accessing data quickly.
And by now, the belt that drives the CD drive is rotted.
That too. A lot more moving parts.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember what speed the 3DO was.
What year was it?
1993, because this is also the, because we're in the, not quite the primordia, but we're still in the era of, I think, single-speed CD-ROM drives.
Yeah.
And they were
I think we're just moving past that, but I know it wouldn't be more than a 5X drive in it.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the 3DO. I think it might have had a double speed. That was kind of the important thing for, like, even at this point, the difference was pronounced. Like the Neo Geo CD released as a single speed CD-ROM in the mid 90s, and it was, just chugged along, literally. Like,
yes, it is a double speed drive.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's probably the first one of those too. Now, and like I said, this actually matters a lot because having a double speed drive meant, well, literally double the speed. Mm-hmm. And like, I'll be honest, I this was kind of an important thing, because CD-ROM load times were fucking bad. Mm-hmm. I mean, you want to like optical media has always had that load time thing going on there, but it's never been as bad as the initial switch over from cartridges to CDs.
Well, and it's especially noticeable with a cart because in contrast with the cartridge where you don't have loading times because the cartridge basically preloads the entire thing.
That's not exactly true because there were like Super NES games that actually had loading times. Looking at you, Batman, forever.
I guess.
Yeah, but in general, yeah, you weren't going to have loading times, and you certainly weren't going to have the loading times on a Sega CD. It's like, like in the modern era, if there are really bad load times, it's probably due to bad optimization or, poor programming, something that than the actual hardware. It's like that stuff is kind of determined, by all games,
right?
So to speak. But so, getting into the conceptualization of the 3DO, this was cooked up by EA executive Trip Hawkins, who, seeing the rousing success that Nintendo and, soon after Sega were having with their consoles, he proposed an idea to, have EA get in that game themselves. EA wasn't biting because, well, here's the thing. Making a console costs is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, even back then.
And EA did not feel the need to transition into a hardware company. You know,
Wise
had they
move
did,
on their part.
Possibly, because one of the unique things about the 3DO was going to be its decentralized style. And what that means is the 3DO company like owned the patents and the design schematics and all that stuff.
But they didn't actually produce the consoles.
Right.
They licensed the designs to other companies to build the consoles.
Right. Their idea was to sell that to different companies, and have it like televisions and computers and other electronics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why there are actually a few different versions of the 3DO. There's the first one, probably the most iconic one, the really big one that was done by Panasonic.
There was one by Sanyo that I think was only in Japan.
Mm-hmm. I think there was a cost-reduced version done by Panasonic later on, but the other one that really gets identifications is the Gold Star 3DO. I'm trying to think if they had like different. I think were the controllers standardized, or
I think the controllers were standardized because I think I remember advertising something about a 3DO controller is basically a 3DO controller or whatever.
Right. It sounds about right. It's like
the button layouts would have been the same at least.
Mm-hmm. And that was actually kind of a problem because remember, this game came out. This system originally came out in 1993, and do you know what happened around that time? Fighting games.
Oh yeah, that's that bastard system with the single controller port and they daisy chained, didn't it?
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, the 3DO consoles only had one controller port in the specs, but each controller had an additional controller port on it.
Here's a special ring in hell for whoever thought that was an okay idea.
Indeed. And it's also the 3DO was done. The 3DO controller was done Genesis style, so it's got 3 buttons. I'm like, and much like the Genesis, it initially had problems handling fighting games.
Yeah, it's about like there's a reason why Sega did a 6-button controller later on.
I'm like, I'm trying to think if they. I want to say that they released a 6-button controller version. Like, pretty much all the consoles at the time had to do that. Like, there's even the shifting to another failed console, the Atari Jaguar had a 6-button version for fighting games. Yeah, you you needed to have 6 buttons for your fighting games. And I do remember reading that the 3DO did have an interesting workaround. I'm not sure if this was like an official thing, but I do know like an adapter, a Super NES to 3DO controller adapter thing existed.
Huh.
Yeah, obviously not sanctioned by Nintendo.
No, certainly not. But unlike, say, the Atari Jaguar, the 3DO actually had some fighters worth buying at the time. Because, remember, this is the world's first 32-bit system. So that means even with its load times, it could get closer to arcade quality better than any other console out there. And it could do it without any RAM expansions. Like, little known feature of like the TurboGrafx CD is it had some RAM expansions done to it, so it could handle some of SNK's fighters like Fatal Fury. No, no such thing was ever released for the 3DO. Although that could be because it didn't last long.
Also,
anyway,
yeah,
yeah,
3DO did get a 6-button controller.
Not surprised at all. It looks like it was kind of rare, but like I said, once fighting games became one of the dominant forms of gaming in the 90s, everyone just had to upgrade to a 6-button controller of some kind, except Nintendo, because as it turns out, their controller may not be optimal for fighters because of the shoulder button placement. I don't know. Your mileage may vary with that. This is certainly an argument I've heard for a long time in terms of like the Genesis controller has the better placement versus the Super NES.
I don't know. I like shoulder buttons.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. That seems to be a preference thing, but objectively speaking, 3-button controllers weren't handling it. And like I said, this is important because like the Samurai Showdown 3DO version is considered to be like maybe not like the definitive non-Neo Geo version of the time. And it's the only system of the era that saw a release of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which is like the last release of the classic line before we jump to the HD re-releases, some years later. And
that was after the new Challengers.
Yes. For those who need help keeping track of what version this was in particular, this is the one that introduced Akuma. Yeah. Like, never appeared on the 16-bit consoles. I don't know if that's because they couldn't handle Akuma or whatever, but I do know the 3DO got it. And it might seem I'm spending an inordinate amount of time on the 3DO fighters, but they really are some of the best games on the system because it's like I won't say the 3DO didn't get any support because it certainly did, but the 3DO in terms of life lasted about 3 years, and I'd say it had like a year in, maybe 2 in its time in the sun. By 1995, with the Saturn and the PlayStation arriving, this thing was dead.
Yeah, Sony and Sega just kind of came and broke its jaw.
I mean, that's pretty much what happened to all of the lesser systems of this particular era. They all got devoured by really Sony, considering how well they won that generation. But even Sega. But anyway, getting back to what this console was, it was this decentralized thing, and that was a problem. Because the margins on consoles aren't great. In fact, they're pretty bad. Like, it's like
out of all the console manufacturers, Nintendo is the only one with like a significant reputation of selling its consoles at a profit most of the time.
Most of the time, although it didn't happen the Wii U or the 3DS. But I mean,
the 3DS now is making a profit.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing.
It'll happen, right? Manufacturing gets more efficient as the system ages.
Yeah. Unless you're like the unless you're like the Wii U or the Xbox
or the Vita.
I don't know where the Vita stands on that scale, but the point is, consoles aren't where you make your money. The comparable model is literally the Razor and Razor Blade model.
I guess outsourcing the quote unquote outsourcing the console production, they were trying to save on that money, but the problem is that doesn't give everybody else the incentive to build a lot of them or make those ones that they build of competitive quality. They try to make them as cheap as they can.
That's not the... But here's the thing. You really couldn't do that with the 3DO because the technology was so new. And here's the point I'm getting at. The manufacturers couldn't make money on software like Nintendo or Sega or Sony.
All right.
Yes. And that leads me to the downfall of the 3DO, which happened, well, quite frankly, out the gate. And that occurred with 3 numbers, 700. This thing costs $700.
And that is in pre-modern dollars.
Yeah, that is in 1993 dollars. I don't know if someone wants to look that on a conversion calculator for inflation, but that's probably like 800 to 1,000 in today's money. The point is, this was a super expensive piece of media. And it had a decent library. Now, like EA was a big supporter of the system, and this is where like one of their big franchises, the Need for Speed, got born. And this is where like Madden and FIFA saw an uptick in production values because CDs and all that stuff. You could have like real footage, and so on and so forth. And Road Rash saw an upgrade. EA was pretty good with the 3DO, all things considered. Interplay had a number of titles on it.
This is where Gex came from.
Probably the most notable, Gex was their de facto mascot character. Although he quickly split the scene when the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation came onto market. See also Rayman. People don't know that Rayman was actually an Atari Jaguar game.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's like, and the reason that people don't know this is because, well, not too many people had a Jaguar. But Gex sold over 1 million copies on the system. It's like there's a reason why the mascot platformer was king in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
They were the games that sold. And going back to like our Voodoo Vince review, like Microsoft's thought process in having a platformer wasn't inaccurate. It's just nobody really had realized that the times had changed and Master Chief fit them so much better. Anyway, but yeah, this is where developer Crystal Dynamics got their start, doing a whole bunch of 3DO games, including Gex, I believe.
Yep.
They're now the people who work on. Well, I'm not sure they are the developer behind Tomb Raider these days.
They've now been swallowed by Square Enix, though.
Yeah. And before that, they were purchased by IDOS in the late 90s. But yeah, so there were some starts here. I mean, the 3DO company itself produced a number of software titles like Killing Time and Captain Quasar, a couple of underrated gems for the system. And like Off-World Interceptor, I think, called, and Battlesphere. Like I said, it had a decent library, but the problem was it didn't have a good enough. It didn't have a library that was going to make people buy a $700 system. It didn't have the anything to sell that. $700. Shit, $700 today is not a mass market price.
No. I mean, the $599 US almost killed the PS3.
Almost killed Sony. The PlayStation 3 was actually a pretty unmitigated disaster for Sony. That was another console that never really achieved profitability and actually lost Sony a ton of money. So, but yeah, it's like, and that's kind of the legacy, as it were, of the 3DO. It's it's sadly kind of a footnote in the history of video gaming. Maybe not considered to be the outright joke that the CDI or the Jaguar are, but it's still something that's if it's brought up in today's context, it's a cautionary tale. Warning against pricing your console too high. Believe me, when the PlayStation 3 pricing came out, immediately people brought up the 3DO and how this didn't work. And it worked better for Sony because they're Sony. Even like PlayStation 3 era Sony was much more well. That was kind of the other thing. None of the players here outside of some of the publishers were established players. Like the 3DO company was a new venture. All the hardware manufacturers never, they had never, to coin a phrase, gotten in the game before.
Mm-hmm. Well, video gaming industry, they've made other electronics.
Right. This is just not a model that proved to be viable, and you can tell that because nobody has ever tried it. Not on this scale. Like, I'm not including like cheap ROM consoles or the like.
Yeah, those don't cost $700 some odd though.
Yeah, and it's like there was a successor planned called the M2. It was supposed to be a 64-bit console. Although if it was actually 64-bit, I have my doubts because here's the thing about the Nintendo 64. It's not actually a 64-bit system. It's a co-processor thing.
Yeah, they were doing funny math things.
Uh-huh.
Well, so they weren't the only ones.
Yeah. I was about to say it was par for the course in that time.
I mean, didn't Atari have a 64-bit thing out like ages before that was like terrible, and also very not 64-bit?
Yep.
That's the Atari Jaguar.
Okay. I can never remember which one is which.
Yeah.
I never had an Atari anything.
Yeah. But this is also when we were entering the time. The 90s were the bit wars, and the 3DO definitely touted the 32-bitness of its system because more bits equals more power, better graphics, yada yada yada. It's like maybe not as aggressive as say Atari or Nintendo on that matter, but still it was there. Like I remember one 3DO commercial that played that through the Sega Genesis and the Super NES into a toy box. Basically insinuating, hey, these are the children's toys. This is something the adults play. Yeah, that's probably because they were the only ones who could afford it.
Yeah, I was about to say, I wouldn't let my child anywhere near something that costs $700.
Oh, yeah. But, so that is the, there was supposed to be a successor system called the M2, and it was purchased by... Yeah, it was purchased by Panasonic, Matsushita, the parent company, for like $100 million. 3DO then became a software company that produced lots and lots of Army Men games before they died. And as far as the M2 goes, it was kicking around until about 1997 when the plug was suddenly pulled. Probably because they realized that releasing a system nobody gave a shit about in 1997 wasn't gonna make them any money.
Well, and also reports where it was still drastically underpowered compared to the PS1 and Saturn.
Ouch. That. Yeah. It's like, and keep in mind, this is 1997. The 32-bit and 64-bit players have been well established.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hell, by this point, Sega's, the Sega Saturn is actually starting to crumble quite precipitously.
Yep, but I'm pretty sure that's a topic for another time. The fall of the Saturn is kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's actually a lot going on there, but but yeah. So, final thoughts on the 3DO.
It had some interesting ideas, but in the end, horrible execution.
I wasn't paying attention. What were we talking about?
Something about 3DOs.
Yeah. Hey, there's a PlayStation. Let's do that instead.
No. It was called the 3DO.
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 Don't.
Sorry, I mispronounced it.
Yeah. I still think that price warrants about 5 or more, but anyway.
Don't.
Thank you, Ogre. Anyway, so that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to tune in about a half an hour, 40 minutes for Moonhawk Studios Presents and our grand debut of our new correspondent co-host. There we go. She's actually our 4th co-host on that show.
Mm-hmm.
The designations are a bit different since nobody here really has designations. I don't really care enough to,
You're the head guy in charge, and we're all people who are here.
Yeah, and you're all like the council, except for Pettyfan, who's our technical director and stream operator and all that
I
stuff.
technically flex an associate producer role when looking for guests, but other than that, I'm just a dude.
Yeah, like whatever. That's because management style here is much more council based because we actually do production meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, enough behind the scenes stuff. Sobe will be joining us for MSP this week. Mac has a few topics he wants to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Politics is one of them.
When isn't it?
That's a good question.
Indeed.
Anyway, the week ahead. So on Sunday, we have 2 reviews. First up, we are actually reviewing Shadows of Pygmalion. Been a while since we've done a visual novel.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure how much of this I'm going to get through because in real terms, this is about a 15 to 30 hour visual novel. I know.
So if I started playing it now, I might be finished by the time the show.
Understand that's like the total run time because there are 3 branches and then there's a true final end.
Gotcha.
Right? So it's one of those. Like, I'll probably be able to finish a branch, but all of the branches, I'm not putting stock into that. We're also reviewing a game called Swarm Universe, which I've played a little bit of. It's a curious shooter. If one, it's like I'm still in the tutorial. Like I've only played about 20 minutes because I haven't had time. But I hesitate to use the. I'm trying to think how much of a twin stick shooter this is because it's more. You're dealing with orbs. I suppose more on that on Sunday. And as far as next week goes, well, okay. First of all, we have 2 interviews happening next week. Yeah, so we have a Tuesday interview, guys. Tuesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ross Bierley of Ghostlights is returning to the program because they've announced a couple games. Yeah. Yeah. For those who don't remember, they're the people who published the Mugen Souls games and the Way of the Samurai games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think this is going to be their 4th time on the show. Yeah. We've got guests that have been racking up the appearances. And on May 10th, our alpha episode, we'll be having Philip Daigle, I believe that's how you pronounce it, of Beamdog Software. We're going to be talking about, well, Planescape Torment Enhanced Edition.
Torment.
And possibly the other enhanced editions. We talked to their CEO Trent Oster about 2 years ago. So this is another one of those multiple studio appearances, different people. It's like, and that's what's coming up there. All right, and I think that'll about do it. So until next time, I wish you good gaming.